Hey guys, Claire here. In today's video, we're going to talk about all things Harry and Meghan. Now, according to Nielsen, Suits is still topping the streaming charts for the 11th week. Now, this week, Meghan's former co-star showed a lot of love to Meghan and the rest of the stars of Suits on Instagram. And because of the recent success of Suits, there has been talks or rumors of a possible reunion.
Happy. It is the end of the writer's strike. Now, there's one show that I was watching because it was a strike, and this was the one that came on all the time, was Suits. And Suits had Gabrielle Mock, Patrick J. Adams, and Meghan Markle. They got all of these billions of streams.
Yes.
Could that possibly be a reboot? Could Meghan Markle come back?
No reboot in the work right now, so I'm told, but I have some good news. Now, when she was on the cover of Variety last year, we asked her if she'll ever be back to acting. She said, no, I'm done, but never say never.
Okay.
Well, now I'm hearing never say never, and if there was a spinoff, it could be fun for her to do a little cameo.
If Meghan Markle comes on for a cameo, who you think might play that boyfriend? Prince Harry?
We are starting all sorts of rumors here.
I love it. Make that whole family work.
Putting it out in the universe.
Putting it out in the universe.
Now, do I believe this will actually happen? No. But there has been talk about that. Now, Harry and Meghan's Archwell Foundation, in partnership with GeneCo, has filled backpacks with supplies and feminine hygiene products to young girls in Nigeria, and they will also provide 2,500 girls with menstrual health education. Now, this is not surprising, and last week we spoke about Meghan possibly working with a Kenyan senator, providing information about period poverty, which again is in alignment with work that Meghan had done in India with another foundation, so this totally tracks. Now, there were also rumors that Harry and Meghan took a mini vacation of sorts after the Invictus Games by visiting Harry's cousin, Princess Eugenie, and her husband in Portugal. Now, there are no photos or videos, so again, that's just a rumor, but good for them if they did. Hope they had a lot of fun. Now, this week, Dan Wooten got suspended from GB News, and also his column with the Daily Mail has been terminated. Finally. Now, many people are calling out the inconsistencies with the way this situation has developed. A lot of people saying for years Dan Wooten and a lot of these right-wing UK media personalities have dehumanized and mocked Meghan, has just slandered her name, attacked her with the most misogynistic and bigoted commentary, and none of them suffered any consequences. Yet now they are being held to task. And I definitely see the frustration. Quite frankly, I'm just glad that he's suspended, and I'm hoping that that suspension leads to a termination, because it's insane the amount of money and reach that he has been given to spew his vile attacks on anyone, and especially on women. You know, he's done this to Meghan, but before Meghan, there was Caroline Flack. And unfortunately, Caroline Flack wasn't strong enough to sustain the bullying and the attacks from the UK press. And we know where that ended. Yes, he should have been held to task a long time ago, but I'm just glad that he's being suspended now. And I just hope that that suspension turns into a final termination. But most importantly, I hope that there are thorough investigations into the information and allegations made via the Byline Time investigations, because those were very, very serious and very troubling.
Oh, Dan, I am sorry. You are having quite the week, aren't you? First of all, you're suspended from GB News. Shock horror that they have actually done something. And now, the Daily Mail, they've said that they've released you from your contract. Of course, that also means, a good news for you, Dan, is that they're probably not going to reveal what their investigation found out about you. Which, you know. But I'd like to say I'm sorry, but I can't, Dan. There you go, as you were.
Dan Wooden was officially fired from his Mail Online column today, and I know we're all celebrating. One less hateful columnist is certainly a win. But this win should have come a long time ago. Multiple things are true here. Yes, the segment between Dan Wooden and Lawrence Fox was disgusting, and they both deserve to be fired for it. Not just suspended, but fired. But also, Dan has been allowed, and I would argue even encouraged, to say hateful, racist things about Meghan Markle for years. Where was the outrage for her? Where were the thousands of complaints to Ofcom for her? According to Byline Times, a spokesperson for Mail Online said about Dan's termination, his moments of madness with Lawrence Fox live on air gave the pretext DMG has been waiting for. Wooten will not be seen at Derry Street again. I mentioned in my video yesterday that I thought these companies may have been looking for an opportunity to get rid of Dan after Byline's investigation, and it sounds like Mail Online felt the segment about Ava Evans was exactly what they were looking for. But with this admission, Mail Online is essentially saying that they are fine with Dan's years of attacks on Meghan, some as recent as this past week. If you're on Twitter, you've probably already seen the video that GB News Spin Room compiled with just a sampling of the way that the commentators on GB News, especially Dan, speak about Meghan.
Meghan Markle.
Yet the Mail Online found no cause to fire Dan Wooden for those statements, or for giggling and agreeing while Meghan was called a predator, a manipulator, a liar, and a bully. But if we look at Dan's work for the Mail Online, it's really not surprising that they found no issue with his racist rants against Meghan. In 2023 alone, from January to when his column was suspended, Dan wrote 39 articles for the Mail Online. Of those 39 articles, half of them were about Meghan or about Harry and Meghan. Dan was paid £250,000 a year from the Mail for his column, and £600,000 a year from GB News. He is or was making almost £1 million a year, and the majority of his content is attacking Meghan Markle. And part of the reason he gets away with this is the invisible contract. We know that Dan and the UK media have been told that they have free reign to say whatever they want about Meghan and about Meghan and Harry. And at the risk of sounding like a conspiracy theorist, I don't think I could be convinced at this point that there's not a connection between Dan Wooten and William. But would the invisible contract be in place? Would the UK media be allowed to constantly attack the daughter-in-law of the current king if she were not biracial, if she were not a black woman? I don't think so. Because of Meghan's race, her very existence in what the royal family and the UK media deem to be white spaces is viewed as a threat. There's no denying that her humanity is seen as secondary to a white person's, even while at the same time a white woman tries to take every aspect of her personality and her appearance and claim it as her own. They will use her for what value they can get from her, and then abuse her when she dares to expect to be valued in return. The double standard is clear. Dan was fired for hatred toward a white woman, and praised for hatred toward Meghan. So yes, celebrate Dan's termination today, but the real celebration will be when karma finds all of the people who have made a living off of hating Meghan for years, and the treatment that she has endured is no longer allowed.
Some people have theorized that there was a lot of allegations of him blackmailing people. And some have wondered, well, has he been able to get away with so much because he has information on certain people? So they sort of protect him. Some people are saying, with the recent news of Rupert Murdoch stepping back from his cancerous empire, perhaps the Daily Mail or the people at the top that are battling so many lawsuits, and we've even seen statistics that suggest that the readership is declining. Not very sharply, but it is slowly declining. So perhaps they're thinking this is a good way to nip the Dan Wooten situation in the bud without rocking the boat too much, and use this as an excuse. Like I said before, whatever the reason, whatever the excuse, as long as he's no longer able to have this platform to attack people in the way that he has and be very generously compensated for it, I'm happy. Now, speaking of toxic media, we just recently found out that Harry and Meghan's Archwell Foundation has helped to fund a report examining the roles of news media organizations and the role that they play in the spread and escalation of online hate speech in Australia. So, Archwell Foundation has been busy. They've been doing so much. And let's not forget that last year alone, Archwell dispersed over $3 million in donations and grants to various organizations. And a lot of the grants and donations dispersed are very consistent with the things that are near and dear to Harry and Meghan's heart: mental health, the media spaces, online spaces, misinformation, female empowerment, resources to women and girls in areas that are somewhat impoverished. So, well done. Now, this week, we saw Kate made some appearances. And you guys know I don't really care for Kate, so I try not to pay attention to what she does. But there was a lot of discourse surrounding her hairstyle. Now, it started with the hairstyle, but it soon went further into the deep dive of the way that Meghan has most certainly influenced a lot of things that the other royals have been doing. Now, this discourse touched on Kate, and I heard someone refer to it as Bungate. I believe that's Lord Everett. Some have talked about the obvious influence that Meghan's style and relaxed manner has made for Kate and how she dresses and interacts with others now. Some have talked about the way Meghan has been a trailblazer in the sense that when she did the podcast, the UK press and the royalists would say, oh, podcasting is unbecoming of a royal. And now, like, every royal wants to do a podcast. After bashing Meghan and trashing her, you have Sarah Ferguson. Then you have one of her daughters. I can't remember if it's Eugenie or Beatrice. Then you have Prince William and Kate and Princess Anne joining the Mike character in that podcast. So a lot of the things that Harry and Meghan do, they're dragged for it. They're saying that it's unbecoming. It's not what royalty does. And then soon after, you see other people of their family running to do the very same thing. And the very same royalists who are screaming at the top of their lungs, saying that the things that Meghan and Harry do are horrible and they're this and they're that, are the ones who turn around and praise other members of the family who basically copy what Harry and Meghan have been doing. So this Bungate led to people really talking about Meghan's influence on the palace, but more specifically to Kate. Now, some say, or some call it inspiration, and some say it's far more insidious than that. What do you think?
It's been a while since I've gotten to do this. I didn't choose this life. The trolls chose it for me. I didn't sit down at 8 a.m. this morning and decide to pick apart every aspect of Kate's outfit today. This morning, Kate showed up to an early years event. She wore a Zara blazer that she debuted in Denmark, actually kind of to launch her early years project and show us how seriously she was taking it. So that was a nice callback. She had this hairstyle that looked very much like a messy bun that Meghan recently wore at the Invictus Games. And it's very chic, it's very modern, and it shows us that Kate's a little more laid back. She's taking this business princess thing seriously, but she's also looking to project that image of being relatable, because this messy bun, this is something that Meghan used to get picked apart for the loose strands. I know they're bangs on Kate, but for having any loose pieces at all. Whereas Kate was the queen. She used to wear hairnets, okay? Kate's whole thing used to be not a strand out of place, not a thread out of place. And now we're seeing her bring in this style element that, again, Meghan used to be blasted for by royalists, but that makes her really, really relatable to a lot of people who are interested in fashion and a lot of people who like to see female celebrities look a little relatable. Then I saw these people apparently very angry that pulling in Meghan's very recent, very similar look, they were offended. They were very angry at that. To these people, the idea of comparing Meghan in a favorable way, any way that recognizes her as an influence, it's disgusting to them and they cannot abide it. And so they pretend that they don't see it. They refuse to acknowledge it. And like at the same time as they're calling me brainless for like making a point of it, they're trying to fact check me, which it tells me you recognize the importance, the implication of what that comparison means. Consider why. Why are you so disgusted by the idea, offended by the idea that Meghan has had an influence on Kate? If your answer to that, even subconsciously, is because Kate's obviously just better, because she's classier or whatever, you are the problem, beloved. It's you. I'm so sorry. You want it to be a me problem. You want it to be me caring too much. Ironically, it's the feigned ignorance, the weaponized ignorance that makes me want to take a second look, because it tells me that you recognize the importance of this conversation. When you want to look at Kate's fashion and you do want to pull in inspirations that might be positive to you, a sweet nod to Diana, a touching tribute to Queen Elizabeth II, or like what happened today, a tie-in to her early years work when she first launched that. If you want to have those small details, which we all love when they're pointed out, you also have to admit that there might be other influences, even if they don't fit your worldview. You do not by any means have to agree with my interpretation every time, but I get the most people disagreeing with me when I tie in Meghan. You can't accept an influence when you like it and then reject it when you don't. The other thing I want to touch on here, which I've gotten in a few responses so far, is that I'm comparing them, that I'm pitting them against each other, which I don't actually think I'm doing. I think it actually can be really useful to compare Kate and Meghan's public-facing roles. Not them as people, not their bodies, whatever, but in their roles, because I think that leads to some really useful, interesting conversations about the institution that we're all here to talk about, the British royal family. I actually see a lot of the don't compare them, don't pit them against each other rhetoric as really harmful, as a form of toxic positivity, a form of respectability politics that only serves to shut down and prevent us from having important conversations about race, about class, about colorism, about colonialism. The number of people now saying don't compare them vastly outnumbers the people who were maybe saying it when Meghan was the one on the receiving end of the negative comparisons. Back when Meghan was being called unroyal, unacceptable, there were not nearly as many people coming to this defense of, well, we shouldn't compare women. And now that it's Kate who is being called out for this transformation into a role that Meghan already existed in authentically, now all of a sudden it's a problem. Because yes, I do think that Kate has colonized Meghan's style and the image that it projects. She took the things that Meghan was being blasted for, those things that were called unacceptable, unroyal, unseemly. She's now co-opted them in the hopes of getting a positive return, getting resounding praise for them. And that's the problem. And so yes, while a messy bun can sometimes just be a messy bun, with the royals, there's often a lot more at play. And sometimes this conversation becomes uncomfortable. I recognize that. But our urge shouldn't be to shut down that conversation. It should be to acknowledge that discomfort and think about where it comes from. I'm trying to get better at this as well. But if looking at a situation and seeing that someone else has a conclusion that you don't agree with, if that makes you uncomfortable, it's time to reflect on that. And if you're sure about your position on the issue, then great. But you also need to ask yourself, are you approaching it objectively? Are you looking at this holistically? Are you not letting any biases in your way? And I think that's where we default to, well, don't pit them against each other, because we don't want to do that, even if we're well-meaning. I will also add a caveat here. If your whole thing is, I just don't like the style, totally fine. Totally fine. But if you didn't like the style on Meghan and now you like it on Kate, that's where the issue is. So again, context always matters. Circumstance always matters. The feigned ignorance that ignores those things is what I have a problem with. So thank you for listening to my TED Talk, and let's go have an amazing day.
I'm going to point out another double standards, and here it goes. Kate Middleton wears loose, low bun and outing to sport children with special needs. That's her messy bun. That's before they photoshopped the picture. But yep, that's it. Okay, now listen to what they say about Meghan. Okay, Remember this back in 2018? Meghan Markle bringing her messy bun to the royal wedding says a lot about the type of royal she'll be. The newlywed wasn't afraid of breaking the rules in the name of the nature beauty. This was on May 19th of 2018. And this was her messy bun, by the way, that she wore. Yeah. Double standards much? Just wondering. I'm just asking. I mean, we'll compare one more time. Messy bun. Supporting children with special needs, which is awesome, by the way. I have a grandson with special needs. But they're really nice about her bun. But boy, did they just try to really rag on Meghan on this one. Again, just showing you guys double standards.
I'm only halfway through Spare, but it's very interesting to see that the narcissistic family structure, no matter their socioeconomic status, will react the same way to their pawn, their scapegoat, telling their truth. First of all, it's important to remember that true narcissists really do not communicate openly. They communicate through third parties, through leaks. They are never out in the open. You will never find them truly speaking what they actually think and feel. In true narcissistic fashion, the British monarchy for decades has been lying to the public and manipulating them and manipulating our perception of them to believe that they are this tight upper lip, never complain, never explain, respectable family. When in fact, they've been spoon-feeding their narratives through the papers this whole time. Narcissists use flying monkeys, and in this case, to abuse and communicate their agenda. In the royal family's case, their flying monkeys are the British media. And when a scapegoat finally quits their role to pursue their truth, to pursue their healing, you will find that narcissistic abusers react and do the same three things. First, they'll infantilize you. They'll make you out to be some pitiable, silly individual. And this is usually when you're still in crisis and reeling from the realization of the fact that you've been living a lie with these people who are actually not your supporters. They will use that grief against you, and they will make other people think that you are stupid or that you're being manipulated by somebody else. Usually it's somebody else that they can't control, that they do not like, that they view as a threat, just like Meghan. When that doesn't work, then you will be smeared. You will find that you're being attacked by people who don't know you. Stories are being written about you, and liberties are being taken about the truth. After that, when they really realize that the jig is up and you're not someone that's going to be controlled and manipulated anymore, then they will discard you. You will not be somebody that they will call for family events, and they will act like it's because you're not trustworthy. But the truth is, it's because you will tell the truth about the abuse. And the only dynamic they want to continue in is one where they're abusing you, you're accepting it, it's fun for them, and they get away with it. If you start talking about your experience, well, then they don't want to be around you because they want to keep hiding the reality of this dynamic. So at that point, they'll just pretend like you don't exist, and that they're better without you. But yes, this narcissistic abuse is plain to see. Spare's a beautifully written book, and I would encourage any abuse survivor to read it.
I don't think you're seeing the right therapist. It's clear that she's just brainwashing you against your family.
Yep. Reason number 6,821 that I believe Prince Harry and support what he's doing. In Section 3, Chapter 71 of his memoir, Spare, he highlights a conversation between his brother, the heir, Prince William, and himself. William, who was initially a proponent of Prince Harry getting therapy for his mental health, suddenly didn't think that he was seeing the right therapist because the therapist was clearly brainwashing him. Friends, this is a prime tactic used by toxic or abusive partners or otherwise toxic or abusive family systems to blame the therapist when it's very clear that the identified patient, in this case Prince Harry, is getting better, i.e. standing up to and standing out against the status quo. I can't tell you how many times I've been the bad gal to husbands and parents and toxic family systems over the years. Usually, it's a sign we're doing something right.
Because the other members of the royal family aren't doing anything worth talking about, one of our least favorite tabloids ran this article today, looking back at Harry and Meghan's first public appearance together 6 years ago. And while they are right that this was the day we first saw Harry and Meghan together officially at the Invictus Games in Toronto, after making so many positive videos the last couple of weeks, I just can't bring myself to talk about the tabloids. So instead, I decided to take a look back on what Harry and Meghan were doing on this date every year since 2017. And what I found is interesting. As I said, September 25th, 2017 was the first time Harry and Meghan made an official appearance together. But it was September 25th, 2018 that had even more people talking. Why? Because it was on this day 5 years ago that the Duchess of Sussex dared to shut her own car door. Meghan's first solo event as a member of the royal family produced article after article, debating whether Meghan was down to earth or just breaking royal protocol again. And while logical people know that she probably just shut the door out of habit, it didn't stop the onslaught of criticism over such a trivial moment. One thing that was hard to criticize, though, was her appearance. Meghan stunned in her now infamous Aquazzura heels and black dress with an added belt that we now know might have helped hide her very early pregnancy. And just 1 year later, on September 25th, 2019, we have another memorable moment, as baby Archie met Archbishop Desmond Tutu in South Africa. With Harry and Meghan stepping back from their roles as working royals at the beginning of 2020, along with COVID, we didn't see them much that year. But we do know from the Netflix documentary that it was this week of September in 2020 that gave us this moment of Harry and Meghan headed to the beach and Meghan sharing the secret that baby Lily was on her way. That same week, Harry and Meghan were also featured in a Time 100 special, reminding everyone of the importance of voting in the upcoming U.S. election.
Now, we're just 6 weeks out from Election Day, and today is National Voter Registration Day. Every 4 years, we are told the same thing, that this is the most important election of our lifetime. But this one is. When we vote, our values are put into action and our voices are heard. Your voice is a reminder that you matter, because you do, and you deserve to be heard.
This election, I'm not going to be able to vote here in the US. But many of you may not know that I haven't been able to vote in the UK my entire life. As we approach this November, it's vital that we reject hate speech, misinformation, and online negativity.
So as we work to reimagine the world around us, let's challenge ourselves to build communities of compassion.
Tonight reminds us of how important it is to watch out for each other, to care for each other, and to inspire each other. We are incredibly proud to join you in this historic moment in time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On September 25th of 2021, just 3 months after Lilibet was born, Harry and Meghan were back at work for an influential trip to New York City. On this specific day, they joined Global Citizen Live to advocate for vaccine equity.
My wife and I believe that where you're born should not dictate your ability to survive.
This week in 2022 was memorable as well, but perhaps the hardest, as Harry and Meghan focused on mourning the loss of the Queen and the tabloids were focused on spreading disinformation. And that brings us to the present, with their most recent appearance for the last week of September 2023 at the charity fundraiser honoring first responders in their community. And how interesting is it that we can look at a random day across several years and see how Harry and Meghan have remained the same from the very beginning. No matter the year or what else was happening in their lives, every single one of these events are about honoring and respecting others and giving back. Invictus, the Royal Academy of the Arts, meeting Archbishop Tutu, encouraging people to vote, advocating for vaccine equity, mourning the Queen, and supporting first responders. And while it may seem that a lot has changed in the last 6 years, what hasn't changed is who Harry and Meghan are and what they stand for.
This is the face and the name that they wanted attached to the piece.
This is what I meant when I said the UK's racism is insidious and evasive. Evasive. Don't get it twisted. Those two people, the black woman and the white man, they share the same thought process. They share the same ideals. But why go through the trouble of getting a white man to write a story and using a black woman's name? Think about it, because I won't explain it to you. You use your brain. Think about it. What do they want you to think when you see her name and that story? Stop taking things at face value. Everything here is evasive and insidious. You have to question what you are being told to believe and why you believe what you believe. Evidence is there.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, hit that notification bell.